we're going to do a 6-part series on the names of God. Why that? Glad you asked. Well, if we're talking about a marriage, for example, that's a relationship, right? When we look back in Genesis chapter 1 and even into chapter 2, we read the story of the creation. When God created man, it was good. He was pleased with it, but then he quickly realized it is not good for man to be alone. So he created a helpmate for Adam, named her Eve. That is the first human relationship with each other, right? Who was there with them in the center of that relationship? God. God was in the garden. They communed with the Lord in the cool of the day. And so that's where we see the importance of God being part of our relationships. And to this very day, we talk about when we mentor people that are looking at getting married, one of the first things we talk about is the marriage is going to be most set up for success if God is the center of that relationship. It's no different with any of our other relationships, with your relationship with your children, your grandchildren, with your friends, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle. It doesn't matter. All relationships need to have God in the center of it. So as I started praying about God to reveal where we want to go with this whole concept and idea of building a authentic community, it was important that we talk about God being in the center of it. Now, here's the next obstacle that I believe that I wanted to touch on, and why it led me to where we're going, is because if you're like me, you may know of God, but do you know God? And until you know God, He can't be in the middle of your relationship. Unfortunately, you may be like me. Back when I was getting in my mess and unfortunately getting into my incarcerated period starting in 2013, I remember sitting in a jail cell, looking around, wondering how I got here. How did it get so dark and grim? How did I get to a point where I'm like an animal picked up by animal rescue and in a cage that I can't get out of? How did I get there? I thought things were good. I thought life was going well. I had fooled myself to the point of believing that I knew that I was going down the right path. I was so convinced that I was doing well that I couldn't even see the destruction before my face. Or should I rephrase that and be honest with myself and say, I refused to see the destruction that was coming because I was making choices that were not of God. But I was going to church. I was going to church on a regular basis. I was teaching in a Christian school. I was there 5 days a week during the week. I was there on Saturday if you needed me there. I was there on Sunday running the sound in the back of the church. I was there helping lead worship on the stage. I was there helping lead Sunday school. We were involved. So clearly I must know God, right? I must be in communion with God, right? Sadly, I realized no, I wasn't. I knew of God, but I didn't know God. Let me put it in another way. You're starting to date a significant other. You start dating that person. Do you know that person right then? No. There's a reason why we say when we enter relationships for the first time, I'm just getting to know that person. Then you start dating more and more. You date that person and you spend time with that person. Now you eventually get to the point of saying, I know you. I know your tendencies. I know your will for me. I know I can trust you. I know your habits. I know your weaknesses. I know your strengths. I know you. God is no different. If we don't take intentional time to get to know God, then we just know of Him. We don't know Him. And so then it started making me think a little bit. I said, well, there's something about the name of God. Our names can tell people about our character. They can tell people about who you are. If you think back in the Old Testament, Abram became Abraham. Saul became Paul. Upon their conversions, God had their names changed. Why? Why would you do that? Because the name tell something about who you are. I didn't even know this, and I'll be fully transparent. This thing got me thinking about my own name. I never looked it up, never cared to look it up. But Jeremy is a derivative of Jeremiah, which, looking it up in the biblical sense, my name means uplifted by God. And I thought, wow, never thought of myself in that way. But if I look back in my life, I'm only here because God lifted me here. That doesn't mean, and I want to be clear here, I do not view myself as being uplifted above anyone else. Far beyond that. I know I do not look that way at all. But I'm uplifted from the mess that I created in my own life. God reached down and pulled me out of the mess that I had created, brushed me off and said, I still love you. Now, if you're willing to do this task, I have a project for you. And that project is what led me here to you today. Crossroads of Hope. It led me to Pastor John. It led me and Pastor John to Katarina, who's doing our social media. It led me to Ash, who's one of our host team members. It led me to Steve, who's oftentimes in our afternoon service. It led me to the Floyd family. It led me to the Wagner family. All of you that have come consistently to this ministry, to these services every week, it led me to you. If you're visiting with us today, it led me to you as well. And I'm so grateful and thankful that God is building these relationships amongst this community. And I want to see it continue to grow. So to do that, we must come to know God, not just know of Him. That's where this series is going to take us. The names of God is going to reveal some characteristics and attributes of God so that we can better understand who the God we serve is, who the God we should praise on a regular basis, not just on Sunday through this service, but every day of the week consistently. We should be doing that on a regular basis. And the more we know God, I am convinced that this community will not just grow stronger, but we will be a community that will serve God with the worship and praise that He deserves through our actions and our service. So I want to talk on point one. When we need to call on something to get through our situations, we may have called on drugs, alcohol, pornography, may have illicit relationships, any of those things that we may have leaned on to help us feel better about our situation in those moments. We've called on it. There's a reason why we have found ourselves in mess. But God said, call on me. Call on me. Call on my name when you need strength, when you need a source of strength. I'll give you an example, okay? When David was young, he went to face the giant Goliath, the Philistine army, right? And he's a little shepherd boy. And he comes out and he is of no match physically, in at least the wisdom of man. He is no match for Goliath. But the sovereign commander of the heavenly armies, the Lord of hosts, is who David called upon. We can read that in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45. He called on the Lord of hosts, the sovereign commander of the heavenly armies, and what happened? God intervened and gave David the strength and the resources to overcome and slay the giant. The God of all armies. Proverbs 18 verse 10 reminds us that the name of the Lord is a strong tower, a fortified place that Christians can run to when the circumstances of life seem as if they are crushing us. We can call upon the name of the Lord. That is who we call on. No matter what situation we face, at least one of God's names is going to reveal a characteristic that we need to be able to cling on in those circumstances, that we can hold on to as a source of strength, a source of a power to get us through. We call upon the name of the Lord. We can trust in God's majestic name. David didn't just know God's name, he had learned to trust in God's character revealed in His name. Psalms 8 verse 1. David experienced God's protection and provision when for years he fled from Saul's bloodthirsty armies. Saul had pursued David as a threat to the throne. But God shielded him from the heavy hand of Saul, because he was ordained to take over as king. If God wants something to be done, he has the provision and the resources. He will make sure that his ways and his objectives are accomplished. God allows only those who actively depend on him to experience the power of his name. So that's our part. What do we do? Now, there's sometimes as a father, right? I've had to learn this. So many times as my kids were growing up, I felt like I had to protect them. I had to shield them from damage, from harm. As they got older, that became tougher. It became almost impossible. I think I've shared before where one of my sons, that was the one that broke me and made me realize that I can only do so much, was when my son Brandon ended up in a drug addiction with his friends, and I couldn't do anything. I was helpless for the first time in my life as a father. I felt completely helpless. My son had left home. I didn't know where he was. He was mad at us. We had called the cops. He was still 17, staying at a friend's house, and we had called the sheriff's department to get him brought back home. And he resented us for that. But, my responsibility as a father is he's still a minor. I have to protect him, but he didn't care. He didn't see that. Is that not how we are? Sometimes our Father's trying to protect us, and yet we don't want to see it that way. We want what we want, and we will fight vigorously to get what we want, and sometimes even resent God through the process. All he's trying to do is love you, protect you. We're no different, right? So when we rest from working to attain our salvation and to provide for ourselves, not just on Sunday, but every day, we show that we trust God to provide for us. There's a trust element there. And we remember to know and experience the power of God's names. We must become humble and dependent upon him, just like infants who depend on their parents for everything. There's a beauty and a freedom that comes from the fact that we can get to a point of not believing that we have to control every element of our lives. That we can just, with open arms, say, God, here I am. I put all my faith in you, Lord. I trust you. I'm tired of trying to figure it all out, making a mess of all of my life, trying to figure out what to do right now. Father, help me take control of my life. Take it all. I can't do it anymore. And there's an amazing thing that comes from that. There's a sense of peace, a sense of freedom, because I don't have to feel like I have to figure everything out. He already has. And he's like, I was waiting on you. All you had to do was talk to me and let me know. Now just listen. Follow the wisdom and the instructions that I'm going to give you through the Bible that I've provided for you. You'll know my ways, and my ways are good. I love you, my child. Welcome home, prodigal son, prodigal daughter. So glad. And just like the prodigal father story, God wraps his holy arms around you with a warm embrace that provides a sense of peace and comfort that you may never have experienced before. And if you have not done that, I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. Nothing in this world will ever give you that feeling, that calmness, that peace. So get to know God and what he has in store for you. When we come before God, we have to do so humbly. We can't do it from a point of pride. So that's point 3. When we come into God's presence, we must do so humbly. If we can't do that and we're bringing ourselves before his throne with a sense of pride, I want to tell you quickly that there was another one that started doing that. We can read about it in Genesis. His name is Lucifer. Lucifer's pride, when he went before the throne, ended up resulting in his fall, along with a third of the angels in heaven. It resulted in not only his fall from the heavenly places, but when we were created as mankind, we were created with the authority that should be over him. And he knows it. How do I know he knows it? Because he had to go to Eve and trick her. He couldn't go take that authority from her. He knew he had to trick her into giving it up. That's the whole point of Christ coming. To make a way of salvation for you and to restore us back to our rightful place. So we should have the confidence to stand up and stand in that position of authority, to know that the enemy should not have control over our lives. Sin will still play a role in our lives. Let's not get that twisted. We will still have temptations because the enemy will never give up. But we have a source of strength to always put us in a position of victory over those temptations. We just have to follow through with that and follow the process. Call upon the name of the Lord in those moments, and He will help provide a way. It's already told us. God's name must be revered. This is something I believe, this is point 4. Another point that I see in the world today is that we've lost the reverence for the name of God. So much so, it's easy to hear God's name used in vain each and every day. So easy. Turn on the TV and you'll hear it 20 times a day, easily. I have to wonder sometimes, are we getting to a point where is that kind of bringing the reverence of God's name down? Are we keeping it holy, or have we just made it a kind of about the equivalent of almost getting a ring in a Cracker Jack box? Oh, it was great. God is holy. God is holy. Okay? He is so holy that in the Old Testament, you couldn't look at him. You had to take your shoes off. When the burning bush, he told Moses, take your shoes off. You're standing on holy ground. Wait a minute, I'm in the middle of the woods, God. It's a bush, a burning bush. I watched animals come through here a while ago. I watched trails. It's dust, it's grass. But God said, no, wait, my presence here has made it holy ground. The Ark of the Covenant, there was a holiness, a reverence. You had to transport it, particular processes that had to be done when it was transported. In the temple, there was dimensions that had to be met. There was color schemes. There was gold here. The veil. Only so many certain people are entered into the Holy of Holies. The high priest. There was processes that had to be adhered to, because God's name was to be revered. He is holy. Number 5, we understand that God is powerful, and He is all powerful. But He cares for you and for me. Okay, He's not a genie that you rub on. He's not Aladdin, right? Or the genie in Aladdin, where you rub on the little lamp and you say, I want wishes or whatever. The all-powerful genie. No. God, we got to be careful, because there's so many things that we see on TV that mystifies or kind of almost desensitizes us almost to the holiness and the reverence we're to have with God. And I just wonder how far off the beaten path we've been. How do we get back there? And that leads to the first name that I want to go over. And it's Elohim. Elohim. As the name Elohim has a referral to God as the creator. The creator of what? Of everything. Everything. None of us have ever had the ability, nor will we ever have the ability, to create something out of nothing. We learn in science class in high school I assume it's mostly in high school when we first learned it, was you cannot create something out of nothing. We might could change the form of something, but there's this matter. And this matter, it's in existence already. We might could heat it up, we might could freeze it, we can change the texture of it, the shape of it, all of these different things. I was in the nuclear power program in the military, and we could take, we had to learn about thermal neutrons and fast neutrons going through uranium-235, decays into krypton and radon, and I know that all sounds like foreign gibberish, but my point is this: even at the most atomic levels, subatomic levels, we still can't create anything. It's there. When we look at electrical power lines, there you can't see the little electrons flowing in mass down the line to provide power to your home, but they're there. And if we look at the atomic levels and we go back to the periodic table in science and things of that nature, we can have electrons come out of the orbits and go cross over, and when they're shared, they create hydrogen and oxygen start to share, and they create molecules of water. Those are all things, but we didn't create anything out of nothing. They're still there. Hydrogen and oxygen atoms are still there. Our bodies, they're still here. Carbon is in us, all these different, everything that makes us up. It's amazing. And I want to just take a few minutes to think about about God as the creator, okay? And I want to paint this picture because we overlook it so much. Just let's start with a child. If you've had a child and you've had the blessing of being in that room when the child is born, or take it back all the way to even the conception, the heartbeat, you know, as the child develops in the womb, I remember sitting there hearing whoa, 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 whoa. And I was just like, whoa, that's our child's heartbeat. It's alive. But now I want you to think about something. Inside that womb, that child is not breathing as you and I breathe. That child is being provided for in different ways than what we know. He's getting his oxygen from another method, through the blood transfer within the mother's womb. Okay? And then suddenly at the birth, as that child comes out of the birth canal, all of a sudden, bam, goes from the oxygen source coming that way to breathing, taking its first breath. And I'm astounded at how that happens. Just like that, I'm breathing, and it continues to breathe until death. We don't think about it. Do you go lungs open up, lungs close? No, we don't think about that until we struggle for oxygen. Maybe when you're going down into the water, you're holding your breath, and it only lasts for so long, right? Or you end up drowning. But we continue to breathe. God's provided that natural rhythm of our body, within our bodies, to breathe, of our lung functionality. Our eyes, our optic lenses, just think about what you're able to view. The light color spectrum for most of us, we're able to do that. What goes into hearing, just the complexity of those systems inside the human body. If you haven't done it in a while, or you've never done it, go out in your yard on a clear night and look up at the sky and just look at the vast array of stars, the magnitude of the sky before your very vision, and just think it goes on and on and on. God's vastness is just amazing to me. It just blows my mind. The beauty, the depth, the vastness of it. And I want to tell you right now that Elohim, the creator of all, created you for a purpose. Now the question I have for you is, have you asked him to reveal that purpose in your life? Have you asked the creator to reveal who the members of community are that he wants you to be involved with? Have you asked the creator where your life is headed. How can you help serve? He created it all, and He wants you to be a part of it. He wants you to be in fellowship with Him and with your brothers and sisters. He created us to be a community of believers. A community of believers that worships Him, that praises Him, that is there to understand the importance of revering Him. So Elohim, that's what we talked about. Next week, we're going to get into some more names. We're going to learn some more attributes. And I'm hoping that you will enjoy this journey as we dive into more about who God is. Because as we get to know His names and thus His attributes, we get to know Him better. If you don't know God, then you don't know He provided His Son for you. You don't know what that meant, the magnitude of that decision that God had to go through. Once you understand that, the depth of His love for you will be just so profound. He loves you so much that He gave His only begotten Son, and whosoever believeth in Him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. He loves you. If you have not made a decision to follow Christ, now is the perfect time to do so. And we pray that you do not let this live feed end without connecting with us and letting us know how we can pray for you. Ask us, hey, I haven't made that decision before. Or hey, I knew of God, but I want to know God. Let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to walk with you in this journey. We want you to experience the love of God, because I do not believe that the labels that man puts on us will ever be greater than the label and identity that God created you with. God created you as His child. He created you as a co-heir with Christ. He created you for a purpose. And nothing that man can ever do will ever keep you from fulfilling that if you allow God to open doors for you. I want to thank you for being here today with us, joining us today. And it has been our honor, our privilege to serve you and to host you today. If you want more information about Crossroads of Hope, you can click on the QR code located right here. That'll take you to a quick reference guide that'll have all the links to our website, our social media, even to a Spotify playlist that is a collection of music that we listen to in our own lives that speaks to us. Every month we add to that playlist, and it just keeps growing. If you need to go to a traditional website path, you can go to crossroadsofhope.church, not .com, .church. There you'll find everything you want to know about who we are, why we exist, and who we serve. You'll also find a Give tab. On that Give tab, you can find all the ways that you can contribute financially to our ministry to help us grow and get the word out to more and more people. One of the biggest challenges is connecting with individuals, and it takes financial support to be able to find methods to mail out letters, to mail out cards, to be able to go to conferences and connect with leaders of these grassroots organizations that are putting the word out. Through those channels, we've been able to connect with more and more people over the past year. It's your support that allows those things to happen. So thank you for that. You'll also find our social media links, all of our handles there, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. So keep up with us throughout the week. And before I leave, I just want to speak to those of you who may be struggling today. Or maybe you struggle throughout the week. If you find yourself struggling, it's those social media links that are critical to have in your back pocket. We are always available for you. We always have notifications going off throughout the week that if you need us, if we can serve you during the week, not only do you have our email addresses off the website, but you have our social media links to direct message, and our social media coordinator will take your information and get you in touch with us. We want to make sure that you live a safe, productive life throughout the week. We want you to understand that your life matters. You have value, and we love you. Each and every one of you that watches this feed, we support you, we love you. We just want to serve you. So with that, guys, have a blessed week. It is my privilege to be a part of this community. Thank you very much. See you again next Sunday.